Hello, everyone. This is Molly from the Casually Molly podcast, and I just wanted to introduce you to my friends at the Natty Cat. This one is for you cool cats and kittens who can't get enough of wordplay and fur babies. The Natty Cat's natural soy candles feature inventive scent combinations in glass jars with clever kitties on the labels. Hand-purred with locally sourced natural soy wax, the Natty Cat's candles wood wicks create a cozy fireside crackling sound, perfect for curling up on the couch. Remember, for all of your candle and scented oil needs, please visit our friends at the Natty Cat either on Facebook or Instagram.
Have you ever wanted to get your shit together? Scrap it, look through the lens and capture it. But first world problems are getting you down. Disabled, salty, needing a laugh to fix that frown. Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. Well, she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Casually Molly podcast. I am your host, Molly Ambergy. Remember that we have a new episode both on audio and video each week, and remember to casually subscribe and let us know which episodes that you're liking. But speaking of likable people, let's give a round of applause for Scott James. How are we today?
I'm living a waking nightmare. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. So, how's your day been, Scott? What's happening?
It's been pretty hardcore. I know we've talked about this at the Funny Bone.
Yes.
But I'm remodeling my bathroom.
Okay.
And
I'm going to pretend like I know nothing, so you tell everybody else what's
Jesus
happening.
Christ. It's ruining my fucking life. There's so much to this story, too, because I only have one bathroom in my house.
Oh, okay.
And I got my wife and my kid, and it's, it'd be different if it was like a little paint, maybe some new tile. Like, we can all, rough it for a weekend while, things dry and set up.
But
and
a
all that shit.
bathroom's intense, yes.
It's, okay. So it didn't just need, I knew it was going to be a problem because I had subfloor that was bad. I mean, it's everything. So I was going to, it went all the way back down to the studs, only to realize that everything inside the walls was also bad and needed replaced. Because I thought it was just like, I don't know, man, you guys like just walk out of the shower, just like dripping wet and like, I don't know, just playing. But no, I had like leaky pipes and shit like that. Like every time you took a shower, it would drip into the basement. So I was like, okay,
God,
this is
really? That I didn't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it turned into, so I sent them to Los Angeles to visit my wife's brother-in-law lives out, or my brother-in-law, my wife's brother. You get where I'm coming from.
Yes, I got it.
He lives out there. And be like, it'll be a good opportunity. Send him on a train. They got a sleeper car. And shit.
Yes, I remember hearing about this. Yes.
Yeah, Southwest quit on me. I don't know what the fuck is going on with that company. But whatever. I hope their whole corporate office burns to the ground. Anyway, so I sent them out there because I was like that, for like, originally it was like a week. I was like, I'll get this done in a week. No.
How's it? Well, because the pictures looked rough. So that's what I was like.
It's intense, man. So here's so my day job, like I do floors, I do tile and carpet and all different types of floors. So a lot of this is in my wheelhouse, but a lot of this shit I'm doing for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's not just like if you gave me if I had the materials and stuff, I could frame a wall, I could do drywall.
Yeah.
I've seen it done a lot of times, a couple of times I've done it here and there, I've fixed walls and stuff. But this is not that. This is like retrofitting everything, and it's just like an avalanche of problems. As soon as I started digging into the walls, I was like, it was a nightmare scenario of problems. So they've been gone for 2 weeks now, and they're coming back. I'm not gonna make it, by the way. There's not a chance I'll have a working bathroom for them to.
Sorry.
So I've been living, it's, I don't even know. It's just now getting to the point where it's starting to look like a bathroom again. Like I've got tile on the wall, tile on the floor, but it's all in construction.
Well, at least there's that. You got over that hump. So.
I got a guy helping me with the plumbing and electrical because I figure like anything else goes wrong and I can pretty well get it. But if I flood or burn down my house, it's probably not going to be able to bounce back from that.
I just love when people are doing construction. Like, I got a guy helping me, but like, here's what's happening now. Like,
Well, check this out. It's a bathroom.
Yeah.
So what sucks is like he can work in there or I can work in there.
Yeah.
So, he comes in and is like, he's got to go back and forth between the basement and I'm just like, you want me to hand you tools or something?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's such a mess. And
just add it to 2020 of things that are a mess. The
well, yeah.
bathroom, the
Oh,
year.
my woe was fucking me. With my yeah. I mean, it's not fun, but I'm also not gonna like.
You've got the time now, so there you go.
Well, no, I don't. I've been working this whole time.
Well, me
I
too.
had to take the time off of work. That's what's crazy about this
I
whole
know.
thing. And there's no way I was going to be able to do this shit with them in the house. So my house,
fair.
what you were saying about Jimmy's house,
Yeah.
bless
Yeah.
you. I don't know. I can't remember now if you said that on mic, actually.
I know. We were standing at the mic and you were talking about like how intense it is. And I was like, oh, I get it. Because when I first started dating my boyfriend, he moved in. He had this house and then he bought the house next door because you guys both live in St. Peter's or you're in O'Fallon.
I'm in O'Fallon.
O'Fallon. So kind of like around that area. And I remember he moved into the new house and we were going to go visit my family for the first time, like the night before when he moved in. And I had to go use the restroom. And he's like, oh, well, like side note, there isn't a restroom to use. I mean, there's like a urinal
There's
downstairs.
a floor drain in the basement.
Oh, Mike, I was just like, either I'm going outside. And so I just remember like standing in the tub and I was like, wow, like I must be really dedicated to this relationship.
Yeah.
Because I was just talking about earlier how I need organization. So this kind of threw that off.
My entire house is a construction site because I kind of did it. I sort of half-assed did it up right where I was like, I'm moving, not all the living room furniture, but I'm moving everything out of the living room because that's the closest, biggest area. And I'm rolling out like all kinds of flooring protection,
Yeah.
old carpet scraps and stuff like that.
And you've got the experience.
So I can kind of fuck it up
Yeah.
and just let it go raggedy. And it just looks like a construction site. And when I'm done, I'm just going to roll all that shit up. And then have to Swiffer and dust and all that stuff because you don't realize how much dust you're throwing around when you're doing that stuff. So I've been living in absolute, like, I don't know. Yeah, the bathroom situation's been weird. The guy helping me with the plumbing and stuff, like, because I did some work for him. Mm-hmm. And I was working on it, and he didn't have a bathroom either. And I was like, where do you want me to pee? And he's
Twins.
like, there's a sink in the basement. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I get it.
It's easy when you're a dude. So
He came to my house and worked, and he was like, hey, where do you want me to pee? And I'm like, well, I don't have a sink in the basement. I've had a couple, not to get too graphic about it, but people can use kitty litter too. That's all I'm trying to tell you. I mean, it works the same.
you wouldn't know the difference.
I mean, unless you got a real mess on your hands, then you probably need to go to Quick Trip.
Oh. Well, meet Will O'Donnell there at the Quick Trip. So that was probably an inside joke with the comedy scene. Sorry
right.
about that.
I feel like if I do run into him at a Quick Trip, I'm going to be a little bit like, really, guy?
Really?
You just hang out here?
Well, so to give a background, there's a gentleman here in St. Louis named Will O'Donnell. He's also a St. Louis-based comedian, which Scott is too. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. We just like jumped right in. But he has a joke about Quick Trips. It's something he's known for now. And so I love that he does those live streams now, like live on the Quick Trip.
Yeah. Really branding himself. You know what's funny?
Yeah.
And this is like when Will started and he started doing that Quick Trip material. Like I have Quick Trip jokes too. And I just stopped telling them. I never even considered it. And I saw Will do it. It did really well. And I was like, man, I should have never stopped. I got no claim to my Quick Trip material now. I just gotta let it go.
Well, you have the Circle K. Maybe you can come up with something there.
No, that's
No.
I would never. I mean, I'm not. Quick Trip is really like it's. I hate to say high end, but
Listen, it's nice.
I've
will
never
say.
felt safer.
No, okay. So not to be like a single girl by myself, but like anytime, like when I live in the city, so I've gone to like everything, like BP things, anything like that. But there is something about a Quick Trip, like going in there, all the lights are on. Like if I'm hungry, I can like grab a wrap if I want. Everybody's always in a good mood when I go in, and it's never seems to be an inconvenience. Versus I got yelled at a BP once because so sometimes in our comedy gigs, which we'll get into in a second, I forget which show I did, but it was like probably like a bar show, and they paid in cash, but all the money was in a cigar box. So obviously like some of the money was like a little wet or just had moisture on it. So this guy was like, where did you get this $5 from at this BP? And it's not sponsored by BP, this podcast, so I can tell this story freely talking about the brand. But he was just like, did you steal this from somewhere? And I was like, no, I'm a comedian, and I got paid, and I got paid.
Where would you have stolen it from?
Precisely.
That it got wet. Like
I was just like, and it was also kind of rainy outside, and like you're doing a million things. So I stuck it in my back pocket, and I was just like, oh, I might as well just use this cash and just put some gas in my tank rather than like taking more money. I don't know. And so I just remember being yelled at it was just so embarrassing. And like this guy came out afterwards and was like, I saw everything went down. I'm so sorry. But then I go to a Quick Trip and these things never happen. So
yeah, they don't give a shit. That thing could be dripping wet. They're like,
whatever, it's money.
Cash is king, baby.
I know. Now in these times, I don't use as much anymore.
My wife and I have this conversation all the time because there's a Huck's really close to us. Mm-hmm. And if I'm like stopping to get beer, or I gotta go.
You're talking about, yeah.
Huck's is the Walmart of gas stations. I've never been into a Huck's and not regretted it.
No.
It's terrible.
Mm-hmm. I haven't been inside, but I've just gotten gas from there because it's on my way from Jimmy's onto the highway.
I used to go to, this is a longer story too. There was a time where I couldn't use my debit card. My bank was actually like, we trusted you with this and you let us down.
How does that even happen?
Well, I had some, look,
because mine just that I got my identity stolen.
They were right to do it to me. I've had my identity stolen too.
Yeah.
But yeah, this time they were in the right to say like we're just
gonna not do this.
We're gonna make you go cash only. And I used to go to Huck's because they were one of the only places where you could pump and then pay.
Yeah.
So you're so used to like, I remember when like gas stations started. It was when gas was up to like $4 a gallon. You had to prepay or pay with your card or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, my wife at the time, up until maybe like a year or two or a couple of years ago, was like a bartender. So she would always give me like her end of bills and by the way, wet bills. Bartenders, fuck yeah.
See, there you go.
So she would give me like wet, sticky singles and fives and shit like that. That was like, here's my end of rent and bills.
Yeah.
You feel like a baller until you realize it's $85.
Yeah.
85 single dollars. But yeah, so I always had wads of cash.
Yeah.
And again, not like huge amounts, but like that I would get groceries and stuff like that. I remember catching a little grief at we were shitting on all like Huck's, BP, Schnucks.
Like literally all of these big brands.
Wow, we really picked a team, man. We're all
we were
on
really
Team
on
Quick
side.
Trip, but yeah, so I've had problems with this guy before. I've never like went and like found a manager and been like, you got to do something about this guy. But I've done this like a couple times to this guy and he's still working there. That's why I go to Deerbergs now. But this fucking guy at Schnucks, I was like checking out and I had cash and he like gave me trouble for using cash. I'm like, I have cash. And part of it was like, I mean, it was like $100 and I don't know, something, $80 worth of groceries. And I was paying with like, there was probably a 20 or two in there, maybe. And the rest of it was
or
like,
dollar bills.
But I kind of was just like, I was already like, I'm in no mood. I counted that out for you.
I'm reputable.
Trust
okay?
me. I didn't round down.
Do you think I'd willingly just want to show you all these dollar bills?
A lot of them are singles, so I rounded up to the nearest dollar, make change for that, or I will donate to whatever stupid ass charity you're gonna ask me to do.
So there's a story I'm gonna tell you about donating in a second, but I do want to talk about you for a minute. So Scott obviously has like great building skills. He talks about flooring in his sets, but I wanted to say that I do also, and you know I'm a complimentary person, but I except for let's talk
Normally
about
I'm shitting all over people. Will O'Donnell smelled bad, and
he's doing live streams from his car. That's how bad
I tried
comedy
some of
has
Red
gotten.
Edwards recipes. They all stink. Glee.
Well, okay, so let's like backtrack for a second. So Scott and I met each other because there's all these good connections and great stories I want to get to because you everything you keep talking about, I'm like, oh, that's a great story, or like this does something. But
Yeah, we should have had a roadmap.
we should have had a roadmap. But I think that we needed to catch up on the bathroom. Nate hasn't known about your construction skills, and he's in the back just like learning how he's going to revamp his bathroom later. He's nodding, giving us the thumbs up.
Oh.
There you go. He's like, I approve. We're talking about outdoor kitchens. But you do comedy. How long have you been doing it? Actually.
It's gonna be 10 years here pretty soon.
Okay. So you
Long enough to where I should feel bad about where I'm at in the industry.
What? No,
It's been 10 years.
No.
Thank God for Facebook memories. Otherwise, I would just have to go like, I don't know, like 5 years or something.
Well, that's what's so funny to me that you're like, I feel bad because like you are one of my like top tier favorite comedians. And I don't say that because you're just sitting here, but I remembered when I don't remember the first time I met you, but you and I both have like leather jackets that we wear on occasion.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember I came in and I think we had gotten to know like each other a little bit more at this point because you were like, oh, Molly's here with her leather jacket. Now we can all be the cast of Grease or something. And I
said,
like,
I don't know what it was something like, I want to say Libby Higgins and Tina D-Ball both had. It was just some goofy occurrence where it was like cold outside.
Yes.
And I found this bitch in leather coat.
Yes.
By the way, that was my brother-in-law's when he moved out of my in-laws' house. He left it behind.
Yes.
And I was like, he left this fucking coat behind?
I remember you telling me
this is a really nice leather jacket. But it was like sitting in his closet in his parents' house for years.
Yeah.
And there's a window in there, so it's got this weird sun-bleached spot.
Yes.
That kind of makes it look like I've had it for a while.
You're just like, I've been wearing this. I'm pretty cool.
But yeah, it was just there was like 3 or 4 of us there with black leather jackets.
It was crazy. And I didn't even know what was going on. I came in and then, all of a sudden, like, we're just surrounded by people. And I forget, I think Duke Taylor walked by and was like, look at these guys over here or something. Yeah. Like, what? It was just like very Duke to like make a joke. But what I like about you is that you are probably one of my favorite storytellers because I always feel like I can follow along. You like speaking of roadmaps, even though we have a crazy time when we talk to each other, you do have a great roadmap when it comes to kind of like processing your jokes and like making a story with it. Is there, not to be like, the actor's studio here and be like, do you have a process that you have? But what do you do? What's your secret? Deep, you were like, we're not going to get any heavy hitting questions.
The secret is always like, if it's something, and I've had these where I was like in the shower or driving or something like that. Driving's a little different because if I've got an idea, I'll pick up my phone and kind of talk into it or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, you hope your like batting average is high. You hope you have like more hits than misses.
Yeah.
It doesn't always, I don't know what my average is for things I've kept. I know I've like, just like that quick trip joke, like if I go through old set lists or old notebooks or I don't have like notebooks where I write everything out. It's just a lot of like bullet points. Mm-hmm. I've gone back and listened to sets on my phone and been like, why did I stop telling that joke? And
like the quick trip joke.
I don't have a good, so basically I kind of look at it like this. You're either like a sculptor trying to chisel shit out of like a raw block of marble, or you're a painter starting with the blank canvas. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm always just chipping away at this big, cumbersome, ugly block of granite or whatever, because that's the story.
Yeah.
I have this story. And then you chip it away at it until it's a workable joke, because there's a bunch of things like I had this one and I'm still working on it because there's really no way to do it to where it's just a joke.
Yeah.
A story about like a kid I went to, he was like one of my 3 best friends that I hung out with a lot in like 3rd, 4th grade. And he came to school for Halloween one year because it was like we were old enough we could still like wear our costumes to school. And he came to school dressed as Michael Jordan. He is not black.
Oh.
And everybody thought it was the coolest shit ever. Like our other two like best friends we hung out with were black, and they loved it. They thought it was the coolest thing. They're like, "Oh shit!" He like cut his hair really short. I mean, he like whole head, his ears and everything painted like brown, and had his like. And Michael Jordan was his hero. Everybody thought it was the coolest shit ever, until we got into class and the teacher like saw it and was like horrified. And this is really before like. Before that was like a fireable offense, like and we were like in third grade. We were like, well, we all like dressed as our heroes, right? I thought that's what I was dressed as a ninja. You know what I mean? I'm not Japanese. I didn't get in trouble,
right? By
the way, but there's this whole long story of this thing, and I guess it's like a weird like we were just blissfully unaware that was not a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Everybody thought it was cool, by the way. But yeah, that's this whole story. And if I tell the whole thing, maybe it's like, I mean, it's like 8, 9, 10 minutes. Well, you can't really, there's so few settings to try that out and shape it up. You know, unless you're just super bold and you're going to do it on a gig you're being paid for. Well, you don't want to work out new material when you're being paid to do things that are worked out. Mm-hmm. And there's like, like I talk about, I had a vasectomy, and I talked about that. And there's a version of that, if I tell like all the funny things and like all the little things that I wrote about it, that's like 8 minutes long. Well, there's also a version of it that's 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you hope that you can start with like a story and then work it down until it's a manageable like 3-minute bit.
Gotcha.
And then sometimes it's just like I have a hard time with it because like if you're explaining like you have to explain things to get into them before you can start. Well, that's not like a very especially if you're opening, if you're hosting and you're like, you got 10 minutes of material you got to do and you tell 3 jokes. Well, those better be 3 really good jokes. If one of those bombs,
you're like, well, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of that's a real tough balancing. People have talked about, oh, you're a good storyteller. I'm like, hopefully by the time you see me doing these, they're not stories and they're jokes. But, But I like that. I like that type of comedy. And when I first started thinking about doing comedy, I didn't think I was going to be doing stand-up comedy. One of the first, I just didn't think. I don't know what I thought about it. But one of the first things I wanted to do is I couldn't put a band together. That's really the long and short of it. I wanted to play music.
Yeah, I was about to say. So were you doing? I read on your bio, on your Twitter bio, that's like a line, but you were like musician, kind of a dick, a comedian, and I was like, oh, you're
aspiring
a musician?
Comedian, musician, and floor layer kind of a dick.
Yes, yes.
So initially, when I started thinking about doing something, it was dark days. Like I couldn't put a band together. That's how my wife and I met. Aww. And I just wasn't doing anything. And I had actually like gone and written a bunch of songs. I'm not a songwriter. I play drums and bass. So
I didn't know
I was just really trying to do something creative. And I wrote all these, and I say all these songs. I wrote like 5, 6, maybe 7 songs. That I was like pretty proud of.
Yeah.
And I knew they weren't like, these aren't finished products, but I need to put a band together and they'll help me finish these off. And I even like made like demo recordings of them. And I can't sing. Like, and I was really proud of these. And there's like nothing worse than having something you're really proud of that you'll never be able to show people. But then, so I wanted to do something. I don't know. I wanted to perform in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I don't think that comedy was originally my initial idea. My initial idea was, if you know who Henry Rollins is.
No.
Henry Rollins was, he sang for a punk band called Black Flag, and he also sang for a band called the Rollins Band.
Okay.
And, but he would do these like tours where it was just him. And I thought like, oh, he's not doing the Rollins Band anymore. He's just got a new band or whatever. And it's just,
yeah.
But it wasn't. He would do like these speaking engagements. And it was funny. I mean, there were parts of it that were funny, and a lot of it was real serious. And he would tell like stories about being in Black Flag and touring, and he's a big world traveler. He would tell traveling stories or whatever.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really interesting. I mean, it's just this dude with a microphone up there telling stories, and I really liked that. And there was, I'm sure it still exists in St. Louis in some capacity, but there's a thing called the Moth.
Okay.
Or the Moth Society or whatever, and it's a storytelling circuit.
I feel like I've seen this before somewhere.
Yeah, so I believe it's a New York thing.
Yeah.
But they had kind of where they were doing it in St. Louis, and it was called Moth up at the time. I think they've changed the name, or I haven't looked into it in at least 10 years.
Yeah.
But I signed up for it. You signed up, I think, through their Facebook page at the time. And so I signed up. They give you a date. Okay, you can tell a date on this story. I did zero investigation into it. And it was like a week before I was supposed to do it. I was like, I bet they got YouTube videos out there. And by the way, I was going to tell, I might even tell you the story I was going to tell. But it's foul, and but it's kind of a funny story or whatever.
Okay.
So I get in there, and I was like, oh, this is the St. Louis one. Cool. And it was like some guy like telling this gut-wrenching story. I mean, this really sad story.
Oh, man.
And he's like starting to cry in the middle of it, and it's very heavy and very deep. And I was just like, that's not what I was gonna do. I'm like, oh shit, and I emailed the lady and canceled.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way I'm gonna go get up there. I would have to follow this guy or go on right before this guy.
Yeah.
And tell a story about this. So maybe I won't tell the
About
story.
your
It's
bathroom
disgusting.
story. Yeah.
Well, it involves a bathroom.
Oh, it's okay.
But yeah, so and then my wife and I were talking about it, and I don't know why it came up doing comedy or doing stand up, and we went to the Funny Bone, sight unseen. I guess we like not for showtime either. We just showed up and was like, "Are you doing comedy here?" And Duck, the door guy there, was like, I mean, it was like halfway through the headliner. We didn't even like time it out. He was just like, "Yeah, it's almost over. You can go in there if you want, though." And we just went in and watched Ian Bagg for like the last half hour of his
He's
set.
great, yeah.
And I was like, this is the shit. This is what I want to do. And then started signing up for open mics.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it.
I know, and now you lead the Funny Bone open mic, which is always fun. And now it's on Tuesdays and Sundays, just plugging that. So that way people come on out.
I think just for October.
Just for October, though, is
This
the
is-
Sunday, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Just kidding.
If I kind of hope it goes like this. So I don't run anything there.
Oh,
I just do
kidding.
like the open mic meeting.
Yeah, but you're
And that's
great
it.
at the meeting. And here's the thing. I know that you always say like, oh, I repeat everything the same way. And like, I feel like, especially to listen, it's like a sign of respect as well. But there are times where you give some really valuable advice. And I always appreciate that. Like, I don't know if you just like choose it on certain days, but like sometimes you'll just be like, oh, hey, let's talk about this for a second, which I always really appreciate it because I'm like, I always call them the Scott seminars. I'm like, oh, I'm ready. Here's my
I'm not
notebook.
the guy to be giving seminars about stand up, by the way. It's usually, and I typically preface it if I'm going to give anybody some kind of advice or something like that. I usually preface it with like, it's either got to be something I learned firsthand, like,
Yeah.
or I have to say like, I heard this from somebody had to tell me this.
Yes.
So it's not like I'm not cutting this advice out of whole cloth.
Of course.
So it's always, and there's a lot of resources out there. There's plenty of podcasts that'll, are kind of geared towards like teaching people, not teaching. This is a bad way to say it. There's one way to learn how to do it. And
Yeah.
you kind of just got to take your lumps and you suck until you don't. And
Yeah.
That's kind of the way it is.
That's why I wanted to ask you this too, because now that I help run St. Louis Independent Comedy,
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
a lot of inboxes about people being like, especially now with COVID, everybody's like, all right, you know how it is, like
What a weird time to start.
it's a weird time to start for sure. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but I think it's just because people were like locked in their house and they're probably left with their thoughts being like, oh, I need to try this, like A, B, and C.
Or they really thought like, oh, I always told myself I was going to try this and I just never made the time.
Yeah,
And then now you kind of got time.
exactly.
The problem with you having time to try it out for the first time, there's just so many fewer opportunities for stage time.
Well, that's the problem is that, the main, and I think I wrote this in the Facebook group when I was running stuff out, and I was just like, a lot of people have been reaching out and they're like, I'm new, what are the opportunities that, are out there? And it's like, I try to update all the open mics, obviously, and like what's available, what's not. So I kind of wanted to ask you, like, how do you kind of feel about, and I ask everybody who's a comedian on this podcast how they feel about this, but how do you kind of feel about, like, these virtual shows that people have been doing? I've done both. I've done, the in-person open mics. I've done the virtual. Where do you kind of stand on all of this?
So I've done a couple Zoom shows, and I didn't like it, but it also served a purpose because when I did them, I was like, I'm desperate to talk into a microphone to people. But I also had new material that I was like, well, I'm not gonna air out, and they weren't open mics either. They were just regular, like, hey, we're gonna do like a Zoom show. You can do like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was good to like actually, even if it's just the other comedians watching, it's good to like air it out and say it out loud and try to say it in like a clear, concise joke format. Because that's, I've been wrong so many times. Like, man, I'm gonna hit him with this tonight. This might be the funniest thing I've ever written. And you do it, and it gets nothing. And you're like, no, wrong again.
Wrong again. Yeah.
You kind of. There's only one way to make sure it's good, and it's just to do it in front of a bunch of different kinds of people.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the Zoom shows, I think, it's like a necessary evil in a way. Like I didn't like it because it doesn't feel live. It doesn't feel, and that's the thing. Like I kind of had fun doing them, but it's almost like it's like being an alcoholic and somebody's like, all right, well, we're out of beer. Here's a tonic. And you're like, it's fizzy, I guess, but I don't like it. But it is, and like people were nice enough to ask me to do them, and that feels good.
Yeah.
But it is like, and it sucks. It's like that's not the fun part about doing comedy is talking. I mean, it's looking at people in the face and like, noticing the expression go from like to and then laughter.
Exactly. Having kind of that punch to it. I can understand how you feel about it. I mean, I have mixed feelings about it too, because I've done both. And I do agree with you where it is kind of nice to just kind of air it out. Even though I don't have an audience in front of me, at least it forces me to be like, okay, I have to be a better writer now because now there's a challenge where you won't have that audience reaction.
Yeah, you kind of you can't muscle your way or crowd work your way out of a joke that's going nowhere.
Not at all. I can't like turn to somebody. I can't say anything. I just have to be like, well, it's almost kind of more terrifying because you're just like, oh, this is me and only me, and then that's it.
Yeah. I would imagine that like the little bit of radio I've done, just, shout out to Tim Convey having me on the radio a couple times and like a couple like little things like this or whatever. Yeah, like you're making, you laugh, maybe the engineer laughs or whatever, but it's just such a weird, sterile environment. You've got headphones on and you're only listening to you and the other people in the room.
Yeah.
And you don't know who's listening. You don't know who on the other end is listening and laughing or...
Yeah, it's just a very different medium. Like, I feel like at least with podcasting, and that's like kind of the one thing that's helped me through all of this, is at least I have that human connection where I can like talk to you, or I have like an engineer to talk, like somebody, you know? But it is weird when you're just kind of like, your voice is just out there and you're just like, Have
you, do you watch comedy at home?
So I do. And I watch a lot of comedy specials. I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts, right? Like who doesn't when they're in comedy? And like right now I'm listening to Nikki Glazer's You Up. And I think that's actually like, it's so fun to like get to listen to everybody on it, but she's really good about giving like notes and stuff at the same time too.
She's given me a couple, and for no reason, by the way. We don't know each other.
Yeah, I listen to other podcasts.
She's given me like at the Funny Bone, like coming off stage, she's given me tags and stuff like that. I'm like, that to me is like one of the It's like the highest compliment I think one comedian can pay another is like
Yeah.
help them with a joke or give them a line, or even if it's not good.
Yeah.
I still think if somebody's saying like that joke's, it's kind of hacky, or it feels like it's been done, or that doesn't seem like something you would say. Like that's happened to me too. Like this is a funnier joke maybe for somebody else, but
Yeah.
it doesn't fit in with what I'm trying to do maybe. And when somebody tells you that, you go, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for being kind of my eyes and ears. Like you kind of just, and if it gets a laugh, if it doesn't get a laugh, I mean, you're sort of like, it helps getting another set of eyes and ears on your material sometimes. And I think that was nice.
You're kind of good at that too. Like you've helped me.
That's why I do it, because
Yeah.
the time somebody else, that means they gave enough of a shit about what I'm doing up there to watch and listen.
I agree.
And I'm really bad about, I mean, especially the funny bone, because I'm usually already like in like trying to work it out in my head before I go on to make sure I'm gonna say what I'm working on properly, or the way I think it's the funniest, whatever. And then afterwards, I come off stage and I'm sort of like playing it back in my head, thinking like, did I say all the parts? I go through, I check off the little bullet points. I got to that. Circling the lines that get a laugh or whatever. So I'm really bad about sitting and just like watching and paying attention. But when I catch it and it's something that like, maybe just an extra line, or maybe like, one of the things I told you I didn't even like give you any lines. It was just something that I noticed that like, if I'm paying attention and I'm listening and I'm inclined to like this person and I'm having a hard time getting where like, and it's like a relatively common problem that people just like talk their entire 4 minutes up there.
Yeah.
There's not like any kind of separation between this joke and that.
Yeah.
And it can kind of turn into white noise. And some of those ideas are really funny. And some of them, I don't know. It's just one of those.
But why I respect you though was you were probably the first person to ever say that to me. And then I was like, oh, because at first when you came over in your leather jacket, like, I know you a lot better now, but in the beginning I was super intimidated because I was like, oh, here comes Father Scott with his leather jacket, just like coming over.
You never know what you're putting out there in
like
the world
what is happening
until somebody tells you something.
And you're just
that.
like, and I was like, oh my God, Scott James is coming over. And like, that's also me being a newer comic and trying to learn, you know what I mean? And you see people you admire. And I do that a lot. Like, I feel like sometimes people, and speaking of things putting out in the world, like I have a friend who thought I hated her when she first, which is like crazy.
Yeah.
Because, but she was like, I was like, no, I was just so intimidated by you because you're so awesome. Like, it wasn't hate. It's just like me being like quiet.
Yeah.
So
my wife gets that a lot.
Yeah.
She has like friends that were like, I thought you were such a bitch when I first
Yeah.
met you. Because she's like kind of quiet and she likes to be by herself a lot.
Yeah, it's just,
Like,
and
so
I love being with people. It's just that, it happens.
But that's why I do that shit, because I remember being new and, being terrible and being aware of it
Yeah.
too. Like I was always like really, and I still am conscious of like when you bomb, when something doesn't go well, like it's a pretty pointed feeling, because there's no other. I mean, sometimes the crowd's tight, sometimes it's a small crowd, sometimes whatever. You make all the excuses in the world, and the next comic after you crushes, and you're like, it's
Yes.
all right. I think we've eliminated all the other variables in this equation. It's me,
Yeah.
and it's what I'm doing, and you feel helpless. So you're like, I think I did my best,
Right.
and it didn't go well. This sucks.
Exactly.
And I really feel like when I started out, there weren't a whole lot of, I didn't get I didn't get any kind of mentorship. I kind of just, took my lumps and dealt with and if I got any kind of advice, it was from somebody who's kind of on the same level. Whereas you look at some of the people who are like, say, a class above you, maybe you're, you haven't started hosting yet.
Yeah.
And it's people who are hosting regularly, or the feature acts, or whoever. I really didn't feel like I was getting a lot of direction from any of them. And I remember that felt kind of shitty, to kind of, and even there's a couple, I'm not going to name names, but there was definitely one where I was like, wow, you're kind of a prick. you don't put off this attitude that you like or care about anybody else doing comedy here right now. And it's somebody who's like, headlines or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's not
A good
like
feeling.
to have people like ambitious and like a little bit starry-eyed, like, wow, I got on the open mic tonight. This is going to be great. And then to have somebody kind of like come at you with like a little bit of a stinky attitude is like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like that. Like one day when I'm in your position, hopefully, I get the headline or whatever, I'm going to not be like this to people.
I love that. Yeah.
And I don't know how well if it's received or if it's received at all, but and it's also like hard to give people advice from my position because I don't have all the experiences in the world.
Well, that's what, and that always like, not that like, this is going to sound dramatic, but it doesn't like hurt me when you say that. But like, from my perspective, I see you as like a very experienced comedian. So, yeah.
So experience and, the whole thing about like to be an expert, you got to put in 10,000 hours.
I quote, Rafe says that all the time.
So
yeah.
there's a lot of like, I'm going to get to that 10,000 hours, but it's going to take me, I don't know, 30 years maybe. Whereas like somebody like Reggie, let's say, or, Vincent Bryant or Bobby J. Cox.
Yeah.
Or there's some comedians in our scene, Andrew Frank, that are probably going to get to those 10,000 hours real quick.
Yeah.
A lot quicker than me, and a lot of it is so I can only give people advice on things that like somebody gave me this bit of advice and I found it very valuable. I'll pass it along with somebody else's name attached to it. Hey, so and so told me this,
which is exactly when you gave me a note once. I forget maybe it was Greg Fitzsimmons, but when you were with the rambling and like talking the whole time, you were saying about how. And Greg actually talked about this on Nikki's podcast. That's so funny. We're talking about this. So it's like when you have to like enjoy the silence with people. Like, and that's something that's always scared me because I have anxiety to the T. So I'm like, oh my God, like silence is the scariest thing. So when Greg Fitzsimmons says like, I'm like in the moment with them, like we're in this together. Like this is, and I'm like, that is like a great way to look at it. And that's what you were like, I detached this because I saw this advice.
There's a real boldness and a real confidence where you can let it go dead for just a little bit because and it's not like necessarily in between jokes, but my favorite is to like give a little more air to something or a little more space to something when I've got like a pretty high degree of confidence that like the end of this joke's going to do really well. So I can not really dick around, but like you can give it a little more space. I mean, it's like if you had a painting and it was just all colors, just fuck pile and everything. It's the negative space is what makes art beautiful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to phrase it, Scott. Look at you.
I forget. Fuck, I had something else I was gonna add to that.
That's okay. Sorry, I interrupted you. But like we had Reggie on a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, I do remember.
Yeah, and he had like a beautiful quote too, and I was like, oh, I love that. And then I cut him off too. I felt so bad, but I'm like, this is so profound. I love it.
Yeah, everybody. I think everybody's got one. Sometimes it's something you've heard. I like to collect little sayings. If I come up with one that's like a good saying or whatever.
Yeah.
I try to remember it.
Scott seminars, I'm telling you.
Pass it off as real wisdom. But I know what I was saying about the 10,000 hours.
Oh, yes.
Which I don't know. I think some people are just gifted. Like Duke Taylor's one of those guys that like
100%.
Pretty much as soon as he started, I think everybody was like, he's already pretty funny.
One of my favorites. Yeah.
His material is pretty good. And he had some like goofy mechanical things he had to overcome. Like he had a habit of like holding the microphone too low. So it's just as easy to say like, hey, pull that microphone up to your face or speak louder or whatever, because they're not going to like turn the microphone up for you at open mics. They're just going to let you be quiet and bomb.
Yeah.
And his material is good. Like if they can hear you, they're way more likely to laugh.
Yeah.
And he's headlining now.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys like you knew he was going to rise fast.
Yes.
Because he started off pretty goddamn funny.
Yes.
And I remember Vincent Bryant and Reggie were kind of the same way. Mm-hmm. And Bobby started before I did, but even, like being brand new and him being like, oh, I've only been doing it a year or whatever. I was like, God damn, you're already really funny.
I know.
There's people I think that just like take to it quicker. So there's no, 10,000 hours is like a little bit of, but it's also, 10,000 hours doing what? Like working the road, writing for this or writing for that. There's so many different ways to use whatever like comedy writing skill.
Yeah.
It's not all 10,000 hours on stage, 10,000 hours writing, 10,000 hours, doing any aspect.
Well, there
of
was
what's
some,
involved in
not to interrupt you, but this reminds, so I listened to your episode on Impolite Company with our mutual friend, Chris Sear, who runs that podcast. And
Okay.
it was from like 2 years ago.
Never heard of him.
Oh. And I pulled it up and you were talking about, you were like, I have favorite comedians that even say this, but when comedians make the joke of and maybe your opinion has changed from 2018, but how like comedians like, oh, I only work an hour a day.
I fucking hate that.
Yeah. And I loved how you were like, which I feel like I have to explain to people all the time. There's so much that goes into it.
That's the 1 hour. That's the hour where you're least like, this sounds really stupid because some shows are work.
Yeah.
But you do all the work so you can spend that hour or half hour or 10 minutes on stage.
Yes.
You do the work so you can do the fun part.
Yeah.
And that's
right.
That's like anything. Like I'm working on my bathroom so I can enjoy a kick-ass bathroom.
Yes.
And I just think like putting in those hours or getting those reps in and stuff like that is I sort of like sight myself in a way, like set your sights on something that is attainable for you in your life structure and your style, how you got it, and you won't be disappointed in a weird way. And it's not like you shouldn't have like aspire to do better things, but I mean, to put it real blunt, when I started doing comedy, I had my wife and I have my kid and a mortgage and a job and real grown-up responsibilities.
Like responsibilities.
And and that would be like exceedingly selfish of me to expect my wife and kid to just like, all right, hear me out. I'm gonna quit my day job.
Right.
And yeah, we're not gonna have insurance. And yeah,
Right.
This mortgage ain't gonna get paid. Somebody's gonna have to pay this mortgage somehow. So it's gonna take me longer to get those 10. So by the time I'm doing the things, I really like aspire to be doing, maybe it's gonna be another 10 years from now. And I've resigned myself to that.
But that's okay. I feel like
it's important to
that's
me.
all right. Yeah.
As important to me as it is to be like good at comedy or write good songs or be good at my job. I actually like being good at my
day job. Yeah.
It's all of those things are kind of secondary to, it's important to me to be a good father and
As
husband.
it should be. Yes.
Like
of
you can be good at
course.
any one of those things and be a shit father, and that's the stink that's going to be on you forever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like getting asked to do things like this it's like, wow, I made it. Somebody asked me to do something that's not like, hey, can you come look at my floor? I think it's fucked up.
Well, I may ask you to do that later on at some
I
point
probably
in the
will,
future.
because I actually like doing that stuff.
I'll be like, come on my podcast, and then afterwards, come to my floor, like just do all these things. We'll put you to work, Scott, and you've really made it.
I don't. Yeah, I think I've made it in the flooring industry. Jesus, I really do it for money.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I think it's like that, and I always call you like, I called Tina D-Ball when she was on here, another great comedian. I was like, you're like the Renaissance woman. And I always think of you as like the Renaissance man because you do it all. You do comedy, you've done music, you do floors. I mean, like, what do you not do, Scott James? Like, what's your deal?
I wish I was better at, I wish I was, because I've had like a constant, okay, so let me put this in perspective. I'm doing my bathroom, and the original idea was to do like little videos as I'm doing it at all the process and edit it together.
talked about this,
and
yes.
then sort of make it funny. That would be the thing, is because I watch a lot of like, so I'm sick. I watch like people. I watch YouTube videos of people doing my job,
Okay.
and I critique it, and I'm like, I would never do it like that. But sometimes you watch it and you're like, oh, yeah, that is a good tip. All right. Who fucking watches people do their day job? That's so goddamn
Scott.
weird. So, I guess. Sorry, what was the question?
That was, I was just,
I trailed off, and now I can't remember what I was talking about.
well, this actually makes me, so we were talking about how, what do you not do? But let me ask you this
Oh,
too.
I didn't. I stopped doing that because I was so. I did the first one where I roasted my bathroom, and then I've just been too busy to do it. But I've also been like, when I'm gonna, I've got so many sets and so many little things. I've got my phone right now is full of sets and pictures of people who didn't put things back in the grocery store where they're supposed to go. They're just like, I didn't really want these cookies, and then put them on the soda shelf.
That is actually one of my biggest pet peeves.
I've been, we got to go through my phone then. Holy shit.
It's like very frustrating when I go to get like, okay, so I was in Aldi the other day, not to this is like a great roadmap. So, but I love that this is our friendship. But I went to get like a can of soup or whatever, and it was somebody put the coffee there. And I was like, well, maybe, I need coffee, but it wasn't the coffee I wanted anyway. And I was just done. I was just like, this is not organized. This isn't it. And then I always feel bad for the grocery workers because I work in customer service where people mess things up all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, could we not? It's just like when people don't return the cart. I don't know if you're one of those people, but I'm always, a big person about
if it's
that.
just me, I'll take the motherfucker back in the store. It's, you know what I mean? Because
just be nice.
And honestly, a lot of the reason why I do that is because like half the time I'm grocery shopping, it is like you can tell like the bagger or whoever, the high school kid that's working there is like doing their closing duties so they can go home. And there's like 2 carts out in the parking lot, and I'm like,
you're like,
I'll just take it back in.
Right. Yes. Thank you. I feel redeemed.
There's so many goofy things. But what I'm trying to say is,
yes,
I wish I could be a little more diligent, or I wish I could put the right work ethic into the right thing. That I was going to get the more, I don't know, like do a podcast or do like a YouTube channel or do something goofy like that. And I don't.
Hard.
I just do. This is what's, and I kind of like this. I only do the fun part of comedy. Do you get what I mean?
Yes.
I write things that I actually, if I've thought about it more than twice, like, all right, this is something and maybe I'll try to write material about. Mm-hmm. And performing and all that shit. But I also don't, there's people who actually work towards being able to do this for a living. And a lot of them, up until COVID, have started doing that. And that's good. Mm-hmm. To be able to have, I was the same way with music. I liked making music. I liked playing shows. I liked jamming with my buddies.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But nobody I ever played in any band with was business-minded enough.
And that's always a factor.
To make it,
mm-hmm.
It really is. And I think there's, I'm just not really good at that. And part of the reason I'm not good at it is because I don't like doing it.
Well, it's hard too, because even for this podcast, you have to keep growing and doing things, and I have to solicit sponsors and people.
Yeah,
and
it's work.
I have to it's hard because I've actually had I've only had one girlfriend who was kind of weird about this, but she didn't understand why I couldn't obviously this was pre-COVID and I don't really drink a lot anymore the way I used to in my early 20s. But
I have kicked it up a notch.
Yeah. Oh. Because of our certain circumstances.
I did that. I instinctually went to my fridge and grabbed a beer working on my bathroom. And I closed my fridge and my clock is there. And I had a Budweiser. I closed the fridge and the clock is sort of on the wall when he closed the door and it was 11:30. I gotta wait.
Well,
I can't start
hard.
drinking.
And now Aldi has a whole. Well, I've also been trying to work out more and stuff because I feel well, here's the thing, Scott. I am not married. I don't have kids. So if I don't apply myself to podcasting, working out, I guess other people are it's not a big deal. Just do you. But there was just getting to a point where I was man, I am not putting any effort into myself and making myself a better person. And then it got to the point where you have 2 beers and you're hungover and you're just and I'm not even a beer person, but whiskey, there you go. I would have that. And I love that. And I was just this is just I just need to get into a better lifestyle. And I swear to you, it's made me better at producing things, making things happen. But my position, I have the time to be able to do all of this. So that's why I admire you, because you do have such responsibilities and yet you still have great material. You still perform. I know you you're I'm doing the fun stuff, but for me, I even get overwhelmed sometimes. But my girlfriends, my friend was why can't you do all these things anymore? I'm because I'm podcasting tonight. And there's a certain respect level that doesn't come out, and that's where you kind of learn what relationships are gonna be there and what aren't really.
And it is and I know I've I'm almost 40. I'm sort of past the stage in life where I can like rely on friends to show up to shows.
Well, my girlfriends came to all the stuff beforehand, and they're in their like mid 30s and stuff
Yeah.
too. Like when I first started comedy, they were all there. Like it got to the point where Larry Green, another local
Yeah.
comedian,
Ah,
was like,
Larry.
"Where are your girlfriends? Like what's?" Oh,
Where-
I have a story about them too. But they would come to everything. that they
Larry
got
is
to-
one of those guys too that like the first time I saw him, I was like, this guy's gonna be huge.
Oh no, he's been on
fucking great.
here multiple
And,
times. Yeah,
and he's one of those guys. We keep interrupting each other and trailing
It's all right.
off.
I love
But
it.
we're doing it. We're doing it to say something positive.
It's always positive.
Larry's one of those guys. Man, he's gonna be. He I think is gonna wind up being big and making it in this industry, and I
hope
think
so.
Reggie too, and probably Bobby and Ray.
Yeah.
And honestly, part of it is because like Larry especially. Larry above all the other people I said, like
Yes.
he's such a good dude.
Yeah. Oh, he was one of my first friends in comedy.
He's one of those
Yeah.
people you really, really wish success on.
Yes.
And he's gonna get it because I've been like every show I've thought about
Yes.
putting on or doing or whatever. I mean, there is that be cooler if Larry was here.
Oh, well, that's how I thought about my Larry. No, he's actually been on here before, and he was great. The best story that I remember, well, when we did our podcast, the best thing, like to speak of Larry, for those of you who don't know him, great person. Not only did he like record, we had a great conversation, we promoted his show. He was like, "Where are you parked?" And I was like, "Oh, I just live up in the artist lofts up the street." And he's like, "Oh, I'll walk with you." And I figured he was parked there too, just because the city.
No, he just walked you down.
He
the
just
street.
wanted to walk me up to my building to
That-
be like a good human, and was like, "You're my friend."
That guy was
and I haven't
raised
caught
right.
up with
You know what I mean?
I was like, "Larry, I feel," and it was like windy and chilly, and even in the wind chill, he still was like, "I never get to talk to you, so this was the time
Yeah.
to do it." And I was like, I remember and I messaged him later. I was like, I don't mean to like keep harping on the fact that you did this for me, but just the fact that you did. And he's like, "Molly, it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry about it." He's like, "Also, let's talk about podcasting." Because then eventually people do that. They're like, it's the same thing you were saying. "Oh, I want to like do this. I want a podcast." But it's hard to fit everything in, even, and you and I both have day jobs. So it's also,
Yeah.
there's that too. And also applying time to people you love and
Well,
still being creative.
I always have this thing, and it's like I said, like you take inventory, you take stock
Yeah.
about what's really, really important to you, and it's important to me to be able to keep doing comedy.
Yes.
But it's important to me to be a good dad and a good husband, good at my day job. I like doing that. I do. I'm like, it turns out I'm turning into maybe a shit friend because I don't call my friends enough. Maybe I don't call my mom enough.
I know. Same.
It's like goofy things like that, but it's also like you take stock and you take inventory and you go like, I can't do comedy 5-6 nights a week. I can do it 1 or 2 nights a week. And then all of these other things I can also, and by the way, I don't know if I'm painting the picture like my wife and kid aren't cool with me doing
please
comedy.
know that Mel is like one
They're
of the most awesome humans. ever.
Crazy
So-
supportive. My kid's a teenager. He pretty much is like,
Yeah, I haven't got to meet him yet.
Whatever,
but
go
I
do
know
a
Mel.
show.
She's great.
he's just such a classic teenager.
Well, yeah.
I always if I'm going out to do a show, I always knock on his bedroom door. "Hey, I'm going to do a show. I love you," and I give him a kiss on his head. And most of the time, he's like, "Yeah, fine."
Bye.
Whatever.
Yeah, because he's a teenager. He's like, "Cool, Dad. Like,
Get
let's
outta
go do
here."
your thing."
But one thing feeds into another in a way, because I have a lot of material about my wife and kid, and if they weren't there, I wouldn't have the material probably, or I would just be like writing, it would just be like more about my dick and balls. I don't know. But those things tend to be. So what you're talking about, like you're not married, you don't have a kid, whatever. Two things happen, and my kid was born, and I was in 2 bands at the time.
Yeah.
And we, played and recorded and did shows and stuff like that. And the thing that winds up happening is like, okay, now I have this extra huge responsibility, or maybe you get married, you're like, oh, I want to be, or you meet somebody or whatever, and you're like, I like this person. I want to be good to this person. I want to be in this relationship and I don't want them to leave me because I don't want them to think like I'm treating them like, fuck you, bitch, I'm following my dreams. You either
Right.
come with or you stay behind.
Right.
There's something to be said for having that like narrow focus, like that is my goal, I'm chasing it and pushing everything else aside. That's great. Good for you for doing that. But I kind of feel like especially for the way I come up with material or something like that, which is, there's no science to it. Like, this funny thing happened today.
Yeah.
See if I can write about it. But they all feed into it. Do you get what I mean?
Yes.
And what happens is when you have this extra big responsibility, you have a kid or whatever, or a new relationship, and it's precious, what you realize is like, okay, that means the time I spend doing this, doing comedy or playing music or, being with my kid or with my, wife or boyfriend or whatever, that time has to be good time.
Yes.
So you need to get more, you just have to be more effective with your time. And unfortunately, when I was playing music, you're not going it alone. I had like 5 other people I played music with. One of them was Mel, by the way, who we were, pregnant with our kid.
I remember this.
Right?
Yes.
So it's like, all right, well, that's 2 of us that we're going to be more tied up. We can't practice, 2-3 days a week. We can do 1, but we'll make that 1 practice as efficient and hardcore. We'll really buckle down. And instead of like, let's go smoke real quick, play a couple songs, go smoke, dick around, bullshit, whatever. Because that's the fun part. That's really fun. We'll just have to be more efficient with our time, and we'll have to actually work harder. And what winds up happening is, for me anyway, I think it made me a better player because up until then, the stakes were so low. It's like, what would I be doing if I wasn't playing right now, dicking around with my friends playing music? Nothing. I would be doing nothing. I would, I don't know, watch TV. But then when you have to be doing something else, the time you spend following your passion or your dream or whatever has to have, it makes you work harder at it. So it makes you like, you don't put it off. So if you really want to keep doing this, you have to be extra diligent about doing it well.
And I have a lot of time because I work at a desk, so I have a ton of time to listen to podcasts. So again, it's just like what you said, all to justify what you're saying. It's like every comedian that I listen to is like ones who have kids. They're like, when I had kids, like it was fun because you're doing comedy and you're like, I'm my wife and we do all this stuff together and it's fun because we're just newly married and it's great. But then they said when they start having kids is when the stakes went up. Like they're like, all right, this set like has to be good, especially when I'm on the road and I'm supporting my family and I'm doing all these things. And it's kind of what you talked about. Everything kind of feeds in. They were like, I'm talking about my family and doing all these jokes.
Especially with something like comedy, or if you were, you want to live a life worth writing about.
Yes.
Whether you're writing music or painting or whatever art you're doing, whatever you do to express yourself.
Yeah.
If that's the only thing you do, I kind of feel like it becomes this like influence loop of, if all you're doing is like, I don't know, just recycling the same like set of experiences week in and week out. The kind of, I don't know, I've been that way for, months and years at a time, and it sucks. It sucks to live like that.
Yeah.
Some people love it. I hate it.
No, I loved being able to make, and especially like, because I'm going to be 30 and not that like, that's like a huge milestone, but it is like, I know everybody always laughs, but it is interesting because sometimes there's days, Scott, where I feel like, wow, like I'm really like accomplished, I'm supporting myself, I'm doing all these things. But it's like weird. There's like other days where I feel like a total failure because I feel like I'm not doing enough. And it's like not even just with comedy, just with like life in general. And it's, you never know. I don't know. I guess like I'm just like in this weird, confused. I'm sorry this is so deep, but I feel like that's just really deep. And then we'll get into some.
It had funny parts.
It had funny parts, but.
Where's the camera? I'm sorry. Like we are looking at ourselves on camera, and it's weird to look at yourself, looking at yourself, but
Nate,
you're not looking at the camera.
This is what I was talking about. That's why I had to look at you in the corner.
Yeah, that's just a reference monitor.
Is it up in the, where is it? Oh, it's.
No, it's directly on top of the TV.
Right on top of the TV.
Jesus.
The monitor's really there so you guys can
We can just pose.
You can see where you're at. So if you're off camera, you can fix your hair.
Wearing the mask has given my beard a weird shape.
You can see the egg on your own
like
face.
Preston.
What's that?
The idea is you can see the egg on your own face.
I gotta keep like doing this shit to it because it makes it go like this where it looks like it's all coming out of like the lower part of my chin. and it looks like I got bitchin' mutton chops.
No, you look lovely.
I like the
Lovely
side
beard.
profile because that's where you really like see it. You're just like, oh.
I can't look at it though because if I'm gonna look at myself, I have to look direct into it. I can't. I'm not like quick enough to catch it.
It's all right. You're gonna see it afterwards. I'll share some clips.
I've torn my bathroom apart. I don't have another mirror. Well, I do. I have like a little mirror on top of a book that I've been using to put my contacts in.
Oh, I've got one.
And
of
it is
those.
like, dude, I looked at myself one time, and this is after like 6 trips to Home Depot, tearing up a bunch of shit. Like I looked at it, I was like, wow, I really look like shit. It was like, dude, it had been
You're
like
being a little hard on yourself. We're in a pandemic.
I tore my bathroom apart, and I was like, I'm doing the dirtiest part of the job. I'm gonna wait to clean myself up until like the dirtiest possible shit is over. And it was a couple days worth of stuff to do. And I was like, I just like took my hat off and my hair was like completely matted. I had like sawdust and like grime behind my ears.
like,
I was raggedy.
Well, the good thing you've got the other bathroom that you.
I don't.
Oh wait, you don't either.
No.
Oh my god.
That's what I'm saying. I have one bathroom.
I didn't. Okay, this is like changing the whole like story for me. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hard times.
No wonder you're just like when I asked you for your bio and you were like, I'll send that to you later.
Yeah, it did dawn on me driving here. Like I sent a headshot and not a bio. My bio is like, I've got it somewhere. I want to read it to you. It's pretty bad.
It was just funny because you were like,
it's pretty bad.
It won't do.
It will not do. It was the last time somebody asked me for a bio, and it's probably like 4 or 5 years old at least, to where it was like, whatever. Like I think I looked up somebody else's bio and kind of just swapped out names, and it is one of the corniest. Now I feel bad. I'm just scrolling through my phone on a podcast.
Oh, it's all right. See, now I feel a lot better because at least I've got a written bio.
Here's
updated.
God, having a kid. It's going to take me forever to find these because I've got 32,000 emails from all of my kids' teachers because he's doing online classes. And not that I don't care, but it is a little bit like, send him this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to be good, a good dad, a good person, a good parent, okay? Do I need this email? And most of the time I open it up, I'm like,
no.
This is definitely not meant for me. This is meant for my kid. And I finally went to my kid, Charlie, are you getting the emails from your teacher? And he was like, yeah, why? I'm like, because I am too. And I hate them for it. Oh, shit. Hold on. I'm fucking up.
Oh, you're good. And then
okay. I found it. Scott James, bio. Hailing from St. Louis. Nobody hails from anywhere. Get the fuck out of here. Hailing from St. Louis, Missouri, Scott James weaves jokes and stories together for the comedic effect you'd expect around a bar table or construction site. That ain't that bad, actually.
I actually really want to use that.
His take on marriage, fatherhood, and maturity swing wildly from practical to the absurd to the delight of audiences in St. Louis area and beyond.
And beyond.
Yeah, St. Louis area and beyond means Cape Girardeau, by the way. That's not. I could probably touch it up.
Oh no, I think that's perfect the way that it is. I love that.
That's so fucking cool.
In St. Louis and beyond. But
to be fair, I do think I read somebody else's bio and I was like, that's cornball shit.
Well,
whatever.
Just
I'll just.
When I write, like, when people are like, describe casually, Molly, like what you do, and I have to, like, because I do it for the sites and everything, and this is why when I talk about being like a failure, I'm like, how do I write this?
You got to do like press release. You got to do like press releases and shit for this.
So I do that, and then I also do like when you do the paragraph, it's like comedians, musicians, and other entertainers in St. Louis, as well as around the country. I've had like maybe a couple of people from LA and New York.
But it's also it's accurate. It's not,
you know.
That's why like the generic, like bringing if you're a host, bringing the next comedian up or whatever, if you're doing, you always ask like, hey, is there any way you want me to bring you to the stage or whatever? And it's like the corny, like just say clubs and colleges or something like that.
That's the
Which
thing.
is Greg Warren. I said that as a joke one time, and you're talking about I was like just getting guest sets and like maybe hosting, and he goes, "That's weird. I did clubs and colleges. I've never seen you." And I'm like, I was joking, Greg. Greg.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it's getting like I feel pretty good. Like clubs and colleges. That's not technically a lie. I mean, I've done
Some clubs.
I've
And
done
some
multiple
colleges.
clubs and a couple colleges. Not doing comedy, doing music, but those aren't technically lies.
That's like one of my favorite things about hosting too, because it depends on what you're like. I love when I ask people about like credits, and like some people are super humble and they'll be like, oh, I've just been on Netflix or something, and you're just like, oh, that's kind of a big deal, but
it's
okay.
what's funny is, I mean, all things are relative. If you're doing comedy for a living, and you might have like some shit that's credits, that's actually like, hey, that's still their job.
Yeah.
And it's sort of and if you're a working comedian, you're probably like, I think it was Jeff Tate. Have you ever heard of Jeff Tate? I think he had a bit one time where he said, like, I mean, I'm one canceled gig away from having to move back in with my folks.
Yeah, people say
And
that
that's
all
a
the
good-
time. Yeah.
It-
People meaning the people I listen to on my podcast.
Yeah. And that's a big leap to take when you say, like, I'm going to do this and only this for money.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, shit.
Oh, I admire the dedication, though. It is funny, though.
You got to bet on yourself.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
it's a long shot sometimes.
Hey, hey, I mean, I feel like, because I was a theater major, and I know I have friends who like went to New York and LA or even Chicago, and like they dedicated their whole life to it. And it's definitely like a different scenario. Like people, that's another thing. And then we'll get into our casual topic today. But again, how you were saying, like, there's so much work that goes behind the scenes. Like, I don't think that people sometimes realize, like, they'll look at, something like Comedy Central. And they'll see somebody like Greg Warren, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll have family members and they're like, I saw Greg Warren's in St. Louis, and, he was just on Zanies and all this stuff.
Isn't
and
that
I'm
weird?
Like,
He's just Greg to us. A lot of
yeah,
times.
and
He's
I
he
don't
just
even
hangs
talk to him.
out.
He offered me a free pastry once, and I was like, thank you, and I took it, and I was like, what a nice dude. Like,
Yeah, we play like a Zoom poker
Yeah.
league or whatever. And it's kind of, but it also, like, you also don't have that, like, just all things being relative. If it's somebody that's around all the time, even if they've got like credits or they're like a real headliner like Greg, who's
Yeah.
like somebody you should look up to as
Oh,
far,
well, that-
as far as
yeah.
like writing and diligence. There's been a couple. I feel bad. Actually, I kind of feel bad that I didn't. So like people like Greg, I did say like nobody really took care of me when I was an open mic or whatever. Greg's not really one of those people. I think mostly he's like. I don't know. I think he's kind of quiet and work on his own shit too. He's not necessarily
which is perfectly fine.
right.
Sometimes it's
Probably
almost
really what
better.
you should be doing. I guess.
Yeah, like, just being a professional, but.
But now I forget what I was saying.
Well,
There
all I was just saying was that, like, people will call and I'm just like, yeah, but like he worked so hard to like get to those things, and people don't realize. You see, like, even people who are just first starting out in comedy, like, the one thing, not that I'm like, I've only been doing comedy for 4 years, but I always tell people less is more. And why I say that is because when I first started doing open mics, I was always like worried, because I was like, oh my God, I look at these people on TV and they have like a 45-minute to an hour special. And I'm like, I'm not there yet. But really what I should have been perfecting was just like 2 minutes of material just to like do something. And I always like laugh when people are just like, well, like Greg Warren, he's got like an hour, and they're just like, so, I can do at least 6 or 7 minutes more than the rest of people at the open mic. Somebody said that once, and I was just like,
He said, "Hold
no.
on, what? Who's
Not Greg, just some open micer that said that, because they were like, so they saw that Greg Warren was there, and they were like, oh, well, he's got an hour, and I guess they wanted to do like 8 minutes on an open mic, and we can only do 4 minutes at the Funny Bone. And he's like, well, Greg Warren does it, so I should be able to do it too.
No.
And I was like,
Yeah, Greg Warren's probably
no.
Greg's one of those guys. Like when I talk about people giving advice or whatever, he's absolutely one of those people. He's had all the experiences you can have.
Right.
Not all the experience, but he's done late night sets. He's headlined around the country.
Yeah.
He's done like so many things that we all aspire to be doing, that if Greg Warren gives you advice on something, jot that down.
You're right.
Make a note. Whereas me is more like, hey, don't play with the mic cord up there quite as much. Looks silly.
So you don't
as
give
much
yourself
advice.
enough credit though, Scott. You do, like I said, you've actually like helped me be a better comedian. Like that's why sometimes I joke with you and I'll send pictures of being like, oh, here's my cue cards that I made, or like here's this. Like
It's
yeah.
It took a long time for me to have that type of confidence on I say this a lot to people is like, because every now and then somebody will ask like, people should be asking these questions. I'm not trying to say it like it annoys me, but you should be asking, what do I need to do to host? What do I need to, and sometimes people ask that question and hey, can you watch my set or whatever? Sometimes people are asking you to do that just so you can pat them on the back and say like, that was amazing. Let's talk about, getting you hosting work. It really is like, you should be, when you ask somebody to watch your set or whatever, like if I asked, anybody, hey, watch my set, I'm trying some new stuff, tell me what you think. If they tell me like, oh, it was really good, I'm like, that's not what I was looking for.
No.
I was looking for criticism.
Right.
That's,
yes.
Right? I forget why I even brought that up.
Well, I was just talking about just like how less is more and how I think sometimes people who are new see somebody who's a headliner and they're like, oh, well, that's what I should be doing. And I'm like, but you have to kind of like grow and be into that position.
Yes. It's absolutely one of those things. And there's like sort of levels, like it took me forever to be able to get on the Funny Bone open mic with any kind of frequency. I say it a lot. Like the first year I was doing comedy, I maybe got on that list like, I don't know, 12 times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of people signing up for that thing, and it sucks. You got to show up, you sign up, and you might not get on the list, and then you could either choose to make that a wasted night, or you could like network and powwow with other comics.
And that's what I tell people who message the page, because again, and I bring up one douchey person that said that one thing, but there's a lot of new people who are actually really nice, like me, who were just lost and confused, but still am. But the point is that you just like networking, especially, and just talking to people was like the best way for me to learn. And even just watching people, like, I feel like when I go to and I should go to more shows on the weekends there now that I have the availability and I'm not at the hotel anymore to do so. But the Funny Bone and like a lot of just like clubs in general, what I like about them is that it challenges you. Like that mic challenges me. And I appreciate that, because when you do get on the list, you always have a crowd normally, which is, I guess, pre-COVID. Obviously now I know things have gotten smaller, but it was like, it's the best way to learn. It's just to keep going up there and doing things. And it's so, sometimes you can, and that goes for anywhere though, at least in St. Louis, you have the ability to get on the list. Like when we were out in LA, like it's crazy because there's such an influx of people. It's really, and it's really, and I say this basing it on like the one day I spent trying to get on open mics there. And there's a lot of different, there's like, I'm sure there's probably bringer shows. There's like bucket mics where they just, everybody that goes to the mic, and it's because it's because the audience is people whose names are in that bucket. Yeah. So if 80 comics sign up for this, like a kind of a shitty bar mic, and they pull the name out and you're not there, it's like you missed an opportunity. And it just feels like, I don't know, my like little, my only experience doing anything in Los Angeles, besides hanging out with like my brother and like friends that moved out there, everybody I ever played music with moved out there. Goddamn. Yeah. I ran into some
and none of them are playing music now. It's very frustrating. Yeah. But like I signed up at the Comedy Store, and the Comedy Store is good because you can sign up for their Monday open mic night, which by the way is a 3-minute spot. Yeah. That might not happen because somebody famous might show up. Yeah. But it's a 3-minute spot. And there's like 85 comics sign up for it. And I think there's only 10 spots. It's not that many spots. 80, however many people for a 3-minute spot. And it's very important to them because most of the people out there like aren't native Angelinos. They moved there from St. Louis, from somewhere, Ohio, or wherever you're moving from.
Everybody I met in LA was not from LA.
Yeah, nobody. Dude, yeah. I actually wound up having a great time. Because you can also sign up for Kill Tony. Yeah. On Monday. And I wound up getting on that, which is a bucket mic. They pulled my name out of a bucket.
I remember this.
And it was a fun experience, but my 1 minute of material I had to do didn't go well.
Oh, well, because
Which is why it was fun, because then they just shit on me for 5 minutes.
I actually met Tony Hinchcliffe because he did it here. And then I ran into him. I say this like we're best friends, but I was out at the Grove. We were at Atomic Cowboy, and I think JC Sabala was on a set doing.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him either. But yeah, he came in with Tony Hinchcliffe, and he was really nice. Like he was just really cool. But I was like, yeah, I was at the show. Like, it was a lot of fun to like watch and see it. And he's like, you were there? And he just gave me a hug. And I was like,
Yeah.
thank you.
He seemed to be like, I know it's easy to like, because I've had the same experience with people like, oh, you know so-and-so? I'm like, yeah, I know them. I love him. Salt of the earth, great dude. Wouldn't,
Yeah.
always want to be around him. And somebody go like, guy was an asshole to me. Like my experience with Tony Hinchcliffe was also a positive one.
Yeah.
But yeah, my experience with doing it in LA, it seems very important to all those people. They moved out there to follow they moved out there to
That's the
pay
one thing.
$3,500 to live in a shithole and
Yeah.
deal with that
So you
shitty
better be
traffic and everything.
serious about
So
what
yeah,
you're
I mean
doing.
it's very important to that. Whereas like St. Louis is a little more like
See, and that's okay. But
yeah,
I
it is.
do-
It's a
I
good place to
do-
get strong, I guess.
No, well, I feel like I've always been, like, I've been getting stronger here. And I also just love our community. But I think I talked about this when Max Price came. I know there's a lot of, like, St. Louis shout outs right now. But I told Max, I was like, it just gets so frustrating when people stand on stage and they just, like, waste my time. And they're talking about how blessed they are and that their family's here. And I'm just like, I don't feel blessed right now. So I have to, like, listen to this shit. And I feel terrible because I feel like such a bitch. But I also know I was a new comic, still kind of am, you know what I mean? And I have to sit and just listen. And I think that's just like one of my pet peeves is I'm like, take it seriously if you want to try it. Like, even if you don't have like strong material, which we're not expecting when somebody is a first timer, at least like have some look like you've planned something. I don't know. But how do you feel about that? Maybe I'm being too harsh. Like
no, not really. I mean, to be fair about it, like, my first year in wasn't. I can't imagine that anybody like watched what I was doing and was like, I think this guy's going somewhere with
right.
this.
Well, I don't even think about going somewhere. It's just
but it is like I don't. There's like
Mm-hmm.
like notable examples here in St. Louis of people who started out and were kind of like somebody that went on stage and everybody went, God damn, again with this shit. Again, I got to sit through this, guys.
right. Mm-hmm.
And then those, whether they just grow up or I don't know, whether they just get better or
That's true.
decide not to do this type of material or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, they grow and expand and they're much, much better.
Yeah.
And
I was
so
also
I kind
a theater person, so you get like that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's stagecraft is not something that came natural to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's, being good on stage is like one of those things. Fuck, talk about Larry Green again. Great on stage.
Yeah, he
And
is.
those are some of my
love it.
favorite comics who are people that just like the confidence. Like I've seen people who are like, I think their material is very good. They're a great writer. Love their jokes. I don't think I would ever pay to see, some guy. I mean, that's great. You're a great writer.
I agree.
But when you would pay to see that Larry Green is going to be Larry Green, Reggie. They're those people I would pay to see those guys because they're
Absolutely.
funny and they're fun to
100%.
watch on stage and it does feel like something that's
Yeah.
it's a performance. It's live.
Yes.
It's happening right now.
Yeah. I agree.
So I don't know. I watch like, first timers or new comics or whatever, and like you reserve judgment because you instantly crash back into your mind your first year or whatever. And you're like,
I agree with that. I think it's just the etiquette thing for me.
it's
Yeah.
etiquette, and again, sometimes those are things that you get. Sometimes those you learn the
I
hard way
know.
too.
It's a maturity factor as well, too.
Like the
And-
guy, that said like, well, he's going on stage doing 8 minutes, and why should
that just really upset me. Like, I just remember being like,
because Greg Warren isn't a famous person. So now, whatever, if his favorite comic, he's like, if Dave Chappelle showed up and did, 20 minutes, he probably would be like, well, Dave Chappelle gets to do that. You get what I mean? Whereas like,
yeah,
well,
I didn't think of it that way.
Greg Warren gets to do that too, but it might not be something like, we know Greg Warren.
Right.
He's there's probably people all around the United States that know him.
Yeah.
But he's also not like if you don't know comedy or you don't know, you know what I mean? You
That
might
is
not
true.
know.
That's true.
It's like a relative. You might not know who that is. So you might see somebody going on stage doing way more time and be like, wait, why does this guy get to do so much time? Well, just trust that if he was doing more time than he was supposed to, somebody would stop him.
Yeah. Well, and I also feel like too, and I will say some of my feelings, again, just come from my theater background, and they're just like, again, like the etiquette stuff. that was like trained in me for about
Yeah.
4+ years. I was in dance my whole life. Like I've had that experience, and I do sometimes have to step back and be like, oh yeah, like that's right. Like some people, not that comedy and theater are exactly the same, but like the way that they're conducted and like shows are produced and how you respect other people around you are very similar. So I do have to remember that sometimes people haven't always been exposed to like what I've seen, like how you treat tech or like how you treat management or how you say thank you when you do a guest set. It's just a different vibe.
Nobody watches their favorite comedy special and considers any of that.
Yeah, I know. And
They're just watching an hour or whatever of material or like a funny YouTube video or whatever. And sometimes they're seeing it, and if you have no other perspective on it, like I don't know, who was your favorite comedian before you started doing comedy?
So, oh my goodness, before I started doing comedy, I really liked Kathleen Madigan. She was, I know she's from here, but I liked her. I liked a lot of like women comedians. Like I watched Nikki Glaser. I liked her too. Amy Schumer, Rachel Feinstein. I really liked her.
Okay, God damn it, you're fucking up my point.
Why?
Because if you had asked me before I started doing comedy who my favorite comics were, it would have been the superstars. It would have been Chris Rock. It would have been Dave Chappelle. It would have been, and now it's like people I've worked with.
Yeah. Well, see, no, I can understand that.
You get what I mean?
Well, because
where it's like one of them might be Greg Warren.
Yeah.
One of them might be Ryan Stout. One of them might be Kevin Bozeman. And these aren't maybe household names. They've got credits. They've done a bunch of stuff, but they might not be household names. But I'm telling you, for the money, they are.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
But I get that too. It's just, I think what your point is too, it's what you're exposed to, because I saw all of those people I just mentioned were all on Netflix or, people who had very big credits, right? Like, it's just like how I was saying, like Nikki Glaser's got a podcast. She's got all these people that she has on. Like I admired those people, but then I started a podcast as I got to know people. And then like now what I'm thinking as, and like, I know you were like, I don't have enough followers, but I was like, who I really admire? Scott James. And I have to have him on here. And so that's why I was like really happy when you agreed, because I was like, oh my God. I know it's when you ask somebody to be on your podcast, it's almost like asking people on a date. It's like the weirdest feeling because you're like, hi, do you want to come out sometime? And I worry that people are going to turn me down just because they're like, oh, I'm too busy or I have this. I don't have that a bunch by any means. So I don't know why I have anxiety, but it's the weirdest
If anybody
feeling.
tells you they're too busy to do this, just remind them that Scott James left his house where there is currently not a working bathroom. Like in the middle of, I dropped tools, cleaned up, and came here.
Aww.
Right? To do this.
Yes.
Knowing full well that he will not have a working bathroom by the time his wife and child get home from their 2-week-long vacation on the West Coast. God, if they ever think that I don't love them with all of my heart, I sent them to California for 2.5 fucking weeks but like, look, I'm not holding this over their heads. I'm not going to do that. It was my idea. But, dude, if they don't rinse the sink when they're done brushing their teeth and shit like that from now on.
Damn it.
It's going to be one of those things and I'm like, you know what I had to go through to get this thing done?
Do you know the effort I had? I
shit in kitty litter, lady.
Oh my God. Oh my stomach. That is the best. I shit in kitty litter, lady. Speaking of shitting in kitty litter, that's a great segment. Before we end out, I know I messaged you about a topic. So sometimes we do this and sometimes we don't, because sometimes I get so caught up with the conversation, or if I don't know somebody as well, I don't do this as much. But I told you, I was like, let's talk about being casually alarmed. And I know that sounds weird, but the reason I brought it up was, so my day job is I sell apartments for a living.
Okay.
And it's a great job for a theater major, because I always tell people, because everybody's like, what's it like? I'm like, well, if you ever watch Wheel of Fortune and you see Vanna White, you're just like, what's over here?
I'm not saying they're nice apartments, but
Yeah.
do you have to sometimes yeah, I have to act like this apartment isn't a shithole.
So,
Like,
well, because it
see?
depends. Everybody, and this is like, it's almost helped me better with like human interpersonal relationships. And it's a weird time to say that when we're in COVID and, you know, we were in lockdown for so long. But everybody's got a story. It's just like comedy. Like everybody's got a story. Everybody's got their own material. And it's the same way when people come in to see you because they're like, you know, some people are pissed off and they really don't want social Molly. So I just have to like tone it down. I'm like, all right, what should I do?
You gotta read the room.
Where's this?
Right?
You got to read the room. I'm like, all right, what do you like? You like updated appliances? I want what's cheapest. All right, we're going to show you a studio. Like, even if I think that a certain apartment is beautiful, I also have to realize that there's other people that are like, no, I prefer a higher floor, or like, no, I want something lower. Like, there's one apartment where it faces towards a parking lot. It's not really my thing because I like having a view, and I know that sounds really bougie, but if you saw my apartment, you would understand.
If it's something that's gonna, I say it all the time when I work in other people's houses. I only have to be happy with this once.
Yeah.
You have to live in this.
That's what I tell people. I'm
if,
like, do
if
you
there's
like
an issue,
this?
let's make sure.
Let's make sure it's okay.
Yeah, let's make sure I don't leave here and have to come back.
Well, that's what I tell people. I'm like, do you like this apartment? Because then when you sign your lease, most people are familiar with this. You have to at least be in your apartment for 6 months before you can transfer. And then there's a fee attached to that.
Yeah.
So like, if you're going to sign up for a year, like that's how I was with my, my apartment I live in now. I was like, I've had too many shitty apartments. Like the last one I had a hole in the ceiling. It was like, I was like, no, I'm going to get a loft. I've always wanted one. I'm doing it. I'm done. And that's what I have with
Good for
people.
you, man.
But then I have like other people who, like today, before I came here, this girl was like, she wanted conversation. She wanted to tell me her whole life story. So you just got to like rock and roll. She's like, oh, you do comedy? I'm coming. Where do you do it? Let's exchange. I can't exchange phone numbers with people, but I do like give the Casually Molly business card because I feel like that's the most, because I'm not soliciting. I'm not like being like, oh, like here's money, but
yeah, you're not. Here's my personal cell phone.
Right.
Call me anytime,
I'm
crazy
just like,
person.
here's just my podcast, and you can stream me where you can hear about public events that are happening. But and people are like, I want to see you, and I'm like, well, I can't really like do anything about that, but I'll be like, come out to the come out to whatever open mic, or watch something on TV. But why I bring this up was, I don't have a lot of issues with residents, but I had somebody call down a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, hey, Molly, I don't mean to alarm you, which is never good because it means that you have to be alarmed. And he's like, there's this guy like yelling on the third floor, and there's just a lot going on, and I don't know, like, I think he's gonna go back in his apartment. I'm like, well, let him stay in his apartment. If there's any like more stuff, I'll come upstairs, because you can't go into the apartment obviously, but I'm like, is there anything? I'll handle it. Well, this guy calls down and he's like, yeah, there's somebody in, and I don't know how this vacant unit was open, but he's like, somebody's in the closet in this vacant unit. Like, you have to come and check it. And I'm like, well, I can't go into your apartment, but I'll go into this vacant unit. And he's like, don't you see them? Somebody's in there. And his trap was that he put a bucket in the doorway in case somebody ran. He could like hear the bucket fall over. Not the best trap, but okay. So of course he's like, don't you see him? I can see their thumbs. And I don't see anything. So I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna go over and check. Like, Jimmy was so pissed. He's like, what if somebody was in the closet? And I'm like, no one is in the closet. So I just gotta like play along. So I go to the closet, I go in, obviously nobody's in there. So this guy starts like knocking on walls. He's like, somebody was in there. There must be a trap door. Like, maybe they went through the window. And I'm like, what is going on? So then I look at his eyes, and I'm like, oh, man, he is on a trip right now. He is like on a trip. So I'm just like, what am I going to do? So I just was like, you know what? And I'm, me, like in those situations, I'm like, just, you know what? Just go back in. You know what? You should just lay down on the couch. Like, make yourself, do you have to work today? I don't have to work. Good. Just relax. Like, maybe you should eat some food or something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know. So I thought maybe I handled it.
What do you think it was? Was it
I don't know, like maybe
probably psychedelics or
some kind of psychedelic, but it just he's usually a pretty quiet guy, so for him to be like on this like wave, because I'm like, because it was something like out of A Beautiful Mind almost, like he's like, yeah, like people are stealing my identity, like look at my Snapchat. And it's like all gibberish that he typed to somebody. And I'm just like, all right, Russell Crowe, like we need to get you back in here. And it was like it wasn't I honestly, I think that he was like seeing people. And then he sent me a video of just a door. And he's like, don't you see them? Like there's somebody there. And I'm like, oh man, like he's like,
Fuck.
so then I thought I had maybe like got him in the apartment and the rest was over. The police show up. And they like are like, police, like let us, like they do. And I grabbed my manager, and I was so pissed.
You know how police talk.
Police, open up. And I was like, this is aggressive. Okay, so they come in, and they're like, yeah, we heard that some. I was like, listen, nobody's in the closet, and I was so like,
You didn't even have like
it was just
at this point you're kind of like, well, if they go check the closet up there,
yeah.
He's going to jail or whatever, because they're gonna look at his eyes just like I did and go, oh
yes. And I didn't
up.
it was because he's like, they said somebody's in the closet, and I told Reggie this when he was here 2 weeks ago, and he started laughing. I was so pissed off. I was like, nobody was in the closet. R. Kelly wasn't in the closet. Harvey Weinstein, nobody is there. And literally they're like, okay. And I was like, would you like me to go up with you? And they said, no, we trust you. Like that's fine.
I think it'd be so funny if you and that guy like left that apartment and somebody went like out of the closet, like,
right.
That was a close one.
And it's a studio
They
spot.
almost had
So they're
me.
like, he's like searching through the bathroom. I'm like, nobody is here. Like, no. So then finally, like the police called the medics, and the medics were so funny. They like came in and took him to get something to eat. And then you could tell like the next day he like realized that something had happened. So he came to like get his packages, and he was super nice. And like you could tell he was like a little shy. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
sorry that this happened. But because I'm like, oh,
That's almost, yeah. I mean, I'm sure I've had, I've never been, I'm not a drug guy.
Yeah.
I smoked a little weed. I drink a
Sure.
little, but I'm not even like a big drinker or anything like that.
Sames, yeah.
But it's like, I've definitely had those times where I've been like woke up the next day and I'm like, oh shit,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to see this person again. And I was talking crazy last night.
Yes. Oh, that like, that's why I haven't gotten like blackout a bunch, but there was one time especially where I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and I was like, what just happened? That's like why I stopped.
My
like,
wife's got,
talking about it. Yes.
you got it next time you talk to Mel, ask her about getting like blackout drunk in Kansas City.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my God. It was
At least mine was in my apartment.
It almost turned into a Taken or whatever for me. Like, it was such a scary, I wish I could tell you a story.
Oh my God.
I don't know how much time.
Well, why don't you tell me your story, and then we'll get to how we can support you and everything that you do, and then we'll talk about more off the air as well.
So the alarm thing. It's weird you mentioned. Okay.
Also, the alarm went off at my work today, so it was just prepping me for talking to you, apparently. So, but yes.
So I wasn't. So I thought I had a heart attack once. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm like a little too young to have a heart attack now. I was 20.
Yeah.
And so I actually worked at a hotel too. I was a kitchen manager.
Okay.
And we would go smoke outside actually, here's a hack. If you're in a hotel or a big commercial and they have a big laundry area, when it's cold outside, you can go smoke under the dryer vents and it just shoots warm air on you, whatever. But in the summertime, it's just hot. So that was the smoking area or whatever. So we're sitting out there and the dryers are on. So it's like hot. It's already hot outside. There's hot air blowing and we're smoking cigarettes, nothing else, just smoking. And I'm like, I'm not feeling that well all of a sudden. I put my cigarette out and I go inside, and the way the hotel was laid out, like when you come in the employee entrance, the employee bathroom is right there. And it's like that whole area until you get to the kitchen is like ice cold. I mean, it was like 64 degrees.
Yeah.
So I go into that bathroom and I'm like, whew. Sat by that vent too long, man. I'm all hot.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm burning up. Sure.
And I'm like getting really hot and getting like a little bit lightheaded, and I'm like splashing cold water on my face. And I'm like, man, I gotta stop smoking these cigarettes, man. It's gonna be the cause of my death. And I'm like just trying to cool down. I can't cool myself down. And I come out of the bathroom and I open the door and pass out.
Yeah.
I mean, I like full on like collapsed, hit the floor, but I kind of came right back up. And all my buddies I was just out there smoking with were coming in at the same time, all laughing, busting my balls. You drip coming out of the bathroom, Jesus. How long were you sitting on the toilet that your legs are asleep now? Shit like that. So they're breaking my balls. I go into the kitchen and I sit at my desk. So as the kitchen manager, I had a desk. I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling that good. Like, I'm definitely hot. Like, I'm having a hard time breathing. And, like, my left arm is just, like, all of a sudden, like, there's just a knot in my shoulder and my hand's going numb. And I'm like, dude, what is going on with me? And I sit at my desk and I'm having a hard time breathing. And it was the guy that I was working with. It was a really small kitchen, so it was always just like you and another person.
Yeah.
I worked with this guy a lot. And he was an older guy, an older black gentleman. And he comes around the corner, like from the line into like the prep kitchen and stuff. And he kind of looks at me.
Yeah.
And by this point, I'm like, something's really wrong. Something's really, really wrong.
Oh, my God.
And he just looks at me and he just walks back off. and he like had a pan of something he was taking to the walk-in cooler. And he comes.
Welcome to a hotel.
And then he comes out of the, yeah. At first I was like, what? You're not even going to ask me if I'm not feeling, if I'm feeling right. So he comes back out. Of the.
I don't mean to laugh about this because you could be dead.
I know. I'm like, I'm just
what?
starting to freak out. So he comes back out of the walk-in cooler and he comes up to me and he's like real casual. He's like, hey man, your left arm hurt? I'm like, and by this point I'm like out of breath enough where I can't really talk. And I'm like nodding yes. And he goes, you having a heart attack, my man? And then just walks off. But he walks off and I'm like, so I can't call 911 because I can't talk right now. Well, he went to the front desk and had them call the ambulance for me. But this whole time I felt like, holy shit, what's going on that I'm having a heart attack right now? I'm 20 years old. And he's like, he was like the sweetest guy, by the way. He went up, called the front desk, and he got me like, he went to one of our ice machines and got like a kitchen towel and wrapped it with ice and got it with water. And he like was putting it on the back of my neck and stuff like that. And the whole time he's like, I had 2 of them. I know what this is. You having a heart attack, my man. And he was like, stayed with me till the ambulance got there, even though there's like orders coming in.
Yeah.
Like, we were getting orders like this fucking guy. And he I don't know, man. He put me on, this is what he did that I really thought, like, this is the sweetest thing anybody's done for me. So I had a hat like I have now, but it was like a hat I had had for years and years and years and years. Mm-hmm. Even at 20 years old, I was like weird and attached to things like that.
You do like hats, yes.
And I had like taken it off so I could like put the cold rag on my face and stuff like that. And they're wheeling me out in a gurney, and he ran up and put my hat on me. He like gave me my hat. I thought that was the sweetest fucking thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I didn't have insurance at the time. And when you're 20 years old and the ambulance drivers think you're having a heart attack, they just assume you've taken drugs. And then they just talk shit about you. Like while you can't talk or while you think you're having a heart attack, and they're like breaking my balls and joking back and forth with each other about what I've taken or what I haven't taken.
Fuck?
Yeah. And then they charge you $1,800 for the pleasure. And then you get to the hospital and they find out you don't have insurance, and they just make you, let's see what happens. They gave me an x-ray. My lung had collapsed.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This story goes from like, scary to kind of funny to like, rage-inducing.
And I'm like, the fuck?
So here's what there's like several levels of me being alarmed. So one, I think I'm having a heart attack, and then I'm alarmed at how douchey and insensitive these paramedics are.
These are like all my feelings.
And then I get to the hospital, and I'm alarmed at how many people walked in, look at my chart, put a stethoscope on me, and then just walked away.
Oh, all the time.
And then and really were just like, I guess you're breathing again. I'm like, yeah. I mean, is that it? Is there anything else going to happen? And like one of those 4 people that stuck a stethoscope on me was a nurse for a pulmonary specialist who sent me a bill for like a couple grand. And like nobody did anything for me, by the way. Typically what happens is they would put a chest tube in you, which is they poke a tube through one of your ribs into your lung, and it reinflates your lung. And they didn't do any of that for me. They just let it, because it will sometimes inflate on its own. And they were just waiting to see it. I mean, I was there for like 7 hours or something. And I also, this was kind of alarming, the front desk lady who I was friends with called my mom because she was my emergency contact, and told them, apparently crying hysterically, that I had a heart attack at work. So now my mom's completely freaked out. My mom's a nurse, by the way. All that professional,
well, no wonder, 'cause she
all the
understands
professionalism goes out the window when your kid is, you think they had a heart attack.
Because it's a personal, like I feel like in those things you're trained
you
for
can't
bedside
detach
manner, right?
From,
yeah. It's hard.
So she gets to the hospital and she picks me up. I obviously can't drive or whatever. And the only thing they did for me in the hospital was give me a prescription for pain pills. And I'd never taken any kind of pain pills before in my life. And then I called my doctor the next day. It was like a weekday. And he was like, well, yeah, come right in. I mean, come right in now if you can. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can't get a ride because I left my car at work. My mom wouldn't let me take my car home, so whatever. And they, instead of my apartment, she drove me back to her house so she could keep an eye on me or whatever, which is probably for the best or whatever. But they gave me these pain pills. And then I come in and I tell him the whole story. And between my mom and my doctor, shout out Dr. Sean McIntosh, he's the best doctor.
Go Sean.
So between my mom and him, like, they were fucking outraged. A, that they didn't do a chest tube or anything like that. And then B, that, like, he was like, they gave you what? And I'm like, yeah, they gave me, and I'm like shaking the pile. I'm like, they gave me these pain pills. And he's like, yeah, don't take those. Those will put you back down. Like, those will put you to sleep. And if you take the pain pills because your lung has collapsed again and you put yourself to sleep, I mean, you could fucking die. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you got to be kidding me. Do you have your, like, paperwork and your charts and stuff like that? And he's like, I'm going to be on the phone with some of these guys. This is crazy. And, so I was, that's kind of the end of the story, except for after that, I was still, like, holed up at my folks' place for, I think, a week until I went back to my apartment. And my buddy Colin and Justin came over and smoked weed and hung out with me. And then my mom got mad because apparently they smelled the weed when they came back into their house. This is my parents' house. I don't live there.
Yeah.
And they didn't even smoke weed in the house. They, like, smoked in the under the carport or whatever. But, like, the aroma was still around, and my mom got really mad at me because she thought I smoked weed with the collapsed lung. I'm like, Mom, I would never. My lung collapsed. And she was like, you're a terrible liar, Scott. I'm like, what does that say? You think I'm a terrible liar when I'm actually telling the truth? This is crazy. That means I could have been getting away.
So what happens when I lie?
Apparently, I'm fantastic at it because you don't know what the truth sounds like.
I had, and then we'll end this in a second here, but I had something similar where when I was a junior in college, you reminded me about, like, the arm pain. And I thought it was because I was dancing a bunch at the time. I had a dance class that I took, and my arm just went, it was like numb on this side. It was just in a lot of pain. And I was like, oh, it's probably I pulled a muscle. And, like, long story short, I woke up and there was just, like, bloody veins on the side here.
Oof.
Yeah. So I was like, what the fuck is happening? And I'm like, of course I'm so vain. I'm like, I look terrible. And I'm like, literally, I'm
See,
like,
that's
what the hell is this?
I guess that's the difference between, like, you and me. I guess at that age I would have been like, holy shit, am I turning into Superman?
I know, right? And I'm just like,
is this a superpower coming on?
This is not. And so I put on some sweatpants and stuff, and I went to the school infirmary, as they called it, we're on the Titanic, and
Is this like college?
Yeah, it was college. So I walked over, and it was just so painful, and I'm like, what the fuck did I do to myself? And they put me with somebody who was like a bone doctor. I was like, this is already stupid. And this lady's like lifting me up. She's like, are you pregnant? I'm like, I'm not even having sex. I'm not even that exciting. I'm like putting my things up, and then my arms, and then I talked to this guy who I
What does that
So
have to do
shallow.
with your arm?
Right.
Are you about to have a shoulder baby?
It was so weird. Like, I was like, man, now you're making me feel really bad that I'm not even wanted by anybody. Like, I'm like, thanks. Like, so this gorgeous doctor comes in. Like, I almost forgot about, like, I know, I'm like, I don't know. He's from Australia. He had like this great accent, of course.
Hooey.
And he's just like, so this has nothing to do with your bones. And I'm like, oh, really? I guess I don't have a medical degree. I'm a theater major, but at least I knew that. And he's like, well, that's a blood clot and it's kind of growing to your heart. So if you don't go to the hospital today, you could die. And I was like, the fuck? I'm like, what is that?
Every little pain I get in like, I had like a cramp or something in my inner thigh and I was like, well, that's the blood clot. That's the one that's coming to get me.
It was terrible. And speaking of the same, they kept asking. And then I think it was because like apparently birth control can like do something like that. And I was like such a nerd or something.
It can. Like my wife can't
Yeah.
take birth control. That's why I had the vasectomy. She
Yeah.
can't take birth control because it fucks her up, man.
Mine was a freak thing, and it was like I had to be on blood thinners, but it was the most dramatic day because like all my friends showed up. Like they were all like, "Are you okay?" Like it was just terrible.
That's such a strange age to.
Well, that was why it was weird because people usually get them, I guess, in their legs or when they're older.
Yeah,
so
I always
they were
heard
like,
about people getting them in
you're
their legs.
healthy, you don't have a bad history because I didn't smoke, I really didn't drink. So it was just like people were like, you're not. So what's going on? And I'm like, you're the doctor. Like, aren't you supposed to know?
That's so much something.
Yeah.
That like I'm kind of bad at like this sometimes too. I'll have. You know, like I do construction. You get dents and dings, and you're a little bit
You don't
like,
think twice about it.
oh yeah, I hurt all the time a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then you let it go a couple days, and you're like, nah, it's starting to feel better. See, I knew I know my body like that. I
You're
know my
like,
meat
I just
machine.
know. And you just get to a point where you're so numb to injury that now I have to think of that. Like, I have to be like, oh, like I broke my arm. I have to be like, oh, I can't like box the way I used to.
Yeah, I've had. Well,
Yeah.
now it gives me like every time I have a little bit of like a chest pain or something. I thought my lung had collapsed again once because I was actually having a hard time taking deep breaths, and I'm like, yeah, I collapsed again. I got to call my doctor, and I went, and he's like feeling around on me. He's a DO. It's a doctor of osteopathy.
Okay.
But he's like feeling around on my back, and he's like, oh, you have a displaced rib. Are you getting like a pinching pain in the middle of your back right here? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you have a displaced rib. I'll tell you what, grab your shoulder, take your left arm, grab your right shoulder, all right, lay back down. And he puts his palm under me, and he's like, I'm going to count to 3. I'm going to roll you over, all right, on my palm. And he just rolls me over on his palm. And I felt like the most satisfying pop. And then like, and
You're
a
like,
full deep breath came back into me. I was like, holy
this
shit.
is what I've been missing out on. Yeah.
Yeah, for like a couple days, I was like, oh shit, it happened again. And it was one of the most satisfying, like just my back popping or knuckles popping or whatever is like, oh, that's it for me, man. Every little like crack and pop, I'm like, I do feel like it's doing something positive for my body.
And that's great.
So that
but
pop
for me, no.
and then being able to take a full breath after that was fucking, it was amazing.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. So, like, well, Scott, I really appreciate you coming. I mean, I know that you had to take time from your bathroom and you're busy being like, there was something I read where it was the St. Louis Dispatch was like #2 comedian right behind Kathleen Madigan in 2018.
That is such a crazy, I don't know how that, Max Price texted me about that. I thought he was fucking with me.
And you're like,
So I'm like, yeah, real funny. All right, you don't respect me as an artist. That's great. Fuck you too, Max. Messing with me. But no, he was like,
no, dude.
no, he was being 100% authentic. He was like, his heart was pure, and I was like, whatever, fuck off. And he's like, no, you came in, you're like #2, and I have no clue how my name would have been up to be on that list. And that's such a crazy list because it was like Kathleen Madigan was #1. By the way, she's from St. Louis, probably hasn't lived here in, I don't know, 30 years. #2 was me, who, by the way, is not a headliner. So we went from Kathleen Madigan, a theater act, a grizzled veteran in this business, all right, clubs and colleges all over the country, to me, who has done none of that shit. And by the way, it's not even true. And number 3 was Joe Marlotti, who's another local headliner. And I have no clue how the 3 of us would have wound up on the
What a
same
combo.
list. And by the way, if Kathleen Madigan's on that list, that means that Cedric the Entertainer also needs to be on that list. That means there's other famous comedians from St. Louis.
I know.
And by the way, some of them aren't even famous. So Nikki Glazer's from here. She could have been on that list.
What is happening?
Rick Warren should have been on that
I
list.
agree. Yeah.
So that's such a strange, I would imagine that there was 70 people voted. Kathleen Madigan got 67. I got 2, and Joe Marlotti got 1, probably. Does that math work out? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's how it happened. But I guess it's a credit.
I was about to say, use it as a credit.
I guess, but it's like clubs and colleges. Technically, it's not a lie.
So you are
I've done those things.
number 2 of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, clubs and colleges. And then can we find you anywhere on social media that you want us to follow? I know you're like, I don't have a lot of followers, but is there anything you want us to follow? Or
you can
even
find
things
me
you
on
have
there.
coming up. What do you want us to
Oh, I do. I actually do have some shit coming up. I'm
Perfect.
doing the Funny Bones All-Star show Saturday. Now I got to find it on. I meant to write this shit down. I'm tearing apart a bathroom, Molly. You got to understand. Yeah, October 24th. I believe that's a Saturday night. I'll be
Yes.
doing the Funny Bone All-Star Jam.
I'll come.
Yeah. I believe there's 2 shows, a 7 and a 9:30.
There is.
Just check the Funny Bones website.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a show in Festus that I got it. Now, see, now I got to find that. I got to plug all the good things.
And
I
don't
do.
worry if it's related to St. Louis, like if it's at the Funny Bone or Helium or anything, because I run the social media for the St. Louis Independent Comedy website. You can also look there as well, and I will make sure to share it there.
Yeah, I don't know who plans things out this far in advance, but I'm also doing O'Fallon, Missouri, at Rendezvous Wine and Spirits. I'll be doing the Black Friday show, so the day after Thanksgiving, I'll be doing that. And November 7th. Or
I'm
17th.
With bated breath here. Is it the 7th?
I'll be
or
in
is it the
Festus.
17th?
I'll be in Festus, Missouri, doing the I believe a VFW hall there. It's look. Have I arrived into this industry? Yes, I believe I have. I'm doing a VFW hall in Festus, Missouri. But hey, maybe that's going to be my market. Maybe I'm gonna meet my first fan there in Festus that night.
You're going to start signing some autographs.
Probably not, because it's still COVID. Like I bet Festus, I bet they don't wear masks. I bet they don't. And I'm gonna be, and they're gonna be like, "Man, we thought you were cool."
And then you put on.
Sorry, guys.
Scott the dictator over here. But no, just kidding. So please make sure to support Scott and all of his endeavors. And if you would like to support the podcast, just make sure that you casually subscribe. You can do that on your audio, wherever you stream. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can like on Facebook, follow on Instagram. Honestly, whatever social media train you want to jump on, just jump on it. But I really appreciate your time, Scott. And
Thanks
what are
for
you
having
gonna, of course, what are you gonna casually do now? That's what I always ask.
Actually, I'm trying to time this out right. I think I'm gonna go. I gotta eat. I keep forgetting to do that. I think I'm gonna.
I wish that was my problem. I wish I forgot to eat.
I think when I get home, I can see what time I.
It's 8:13 right
Yeah,
now.
I don't have that much time.
Nate, we went long. I'm
Holy
sorry.
shit!
It's cool. I don't do anything.
He's like, it's fine.
My family can wait.
Sorry, Nate.
Yeah, my 3 kids are at home.
I think my
waiting
dog.
to take
I
dinner.
didn't feed my dog today. He's starving because you guys went 2 fucking hours.
I just put the dog down before I came here. I just assumed. Too dark out.
God damn, we should have quit. This got sad real quick. Guy just put his dog. Oh my god.
Well, thanks, everybody. Have a great time. Bye.